This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Brett Dolan, Touchdown Radio, and of course covering Arkansas athletics as well, and perfect game and all sorts of things. Brett, while he's been on Touchdown Radio, has called football games in Bloomington, Indiana, in Miami, Oxford, in Happy Valley in Pennsylvania, State College, Auburn. Last week he had the Tigers and the Tigers with LSU and Mizzou. Looks like that's the most points you've seen in a game this year, Brett. So, of course, you follow it up with Iowa and Wisconsin.
There is some symmetry there. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, we had 5 lead changes in the second half, back and forth, a lot of points, a lot of offense, even exceeded the over, and now we get 2 teams where I think the over-under is something in the neighborhood of, 35. So you're right. We won't see, or shouldn't see, much this Saturday in Camp Randall.
What did you think of the Mizzou offense? Because I know they've had, Cody Schrader has had a great season so far, but they're incredibly dangerous. In the air, Luther Burden leads the nation in receiving yards. Schrader's one of the better running backs in the country. Brady Cook barely ever throws interceptions, though he did throw one against LSU in the loss. But they're a much more dangerous offensive team than I think they've been in a long time.
No, agreed. I really like their quarterback. He threw the interception, then ended the streak in the first half. Then he threw one late for a pick six when the game was all but over. And it was underthrown, wasn't a good ball. But, he's got a couple of good receivers. The running back doesn't, have the dynamic qualities that other guys do coming from D2. But it's a good offense, and they should have won that game. I mean, they let that one slip away, although Jaden Daniels was by far the best player on the field, and I got to believe he's a Heisman candidate no matter what happens with LSU going forward. But it's a pretty fun offense to watch. And, when they were up 22-7 in the first half, I certainly thought it was their game to lose, and they had multiple leads even in the second half and fourth quarter, but let it slip away. And, that's the next step for programs like Mizzou. How do you finish? How do you win games that you should win and go to 6-0 rather than 5-1?
Yeah, the theater of college football, I just absolutely love it. Did you get to check that Oklahoma-Texas game out last week?
I did, but not to the level I wanted to with the chaos we had. But, Matt, you've been talking about Oklahoma for a couple of weeks, and I'll give you your due because, they found a way to get it done, and they jumped way up in the rankings. And I guess, for winning that game, they'll get to wear the home uniforms when they meet again. It's kind of what you gain from that. But, wow, that was a nice win for the Sooners, to say the least.
Feels like a foregone conclusion that those will be the 2 teams standing when the Big 12 season finishes. You see anybody on the schedules, either of those teams, that can find a way to pull off an upset and force someone else into that title game?
I just don't know. It seems like every week we kind of shift a little bit on who's going to be in this game or that game. I mean, as far as the Big 12, I don't see anybody outside of Texas and Oklahoma. And then, of course, the question is this still going to be enough? Will the Pac-10 kind of knock themselves out of competition? Does the Big 10 East have one representative out of the 3? And, we're kind of getting to that time of the year where maybe nothing is truly shocking or surprising as far as upsets, but we still find games every week that catches a little bit off guard and we kind of overreact to back and forth each and every week. But this is why we love it, and this is why we love, October/November football.
So let me give you 3 teams out of the Big 10 East. Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State. Yes, you've seen all of them but Michigan. I know you will see Michigan. You've got them at Michigan State in a couple of weeks, and anything happens in that series. Which of those 3 teams could you see falling in an upset? Not the best of those teams. I think Michigan is the best of those teams, but I think Ohio State could be ripe for an upset at some point.
Well, I've got Michigan at Maryland on November 18th or 19th. It's the week before they play Ohio State. So that would be kind of the definition of a possible trap game. And they have to go to Maryland where they're fairly dangerous. I mean, Maryland for a half looked like they were for real against Ohio State until the Buckeyes kind of flexed their muscle. That's the game I'm looking at, and I'll be happy to be there and be on hand for the call. I think you're right. I think Michigan's probably better than the other 3. The question is, again, how how they look against each other, how Ohio State looks against Michigan. That's not been a recipe for success in the last couple of years, and I guarantee you Ryan Day feels that pressure 364 days out of the year, not being able to defeat Michigan. But, we always like to say things will take care of themselves. One team will emerge in the Big Ten or one team will emerge in the Pac-12. I just don't know, Phil, if this will be the year where we legitimately have 4 teams that deserve to be in, or a 5th. Normally, we spend all the time arguing about who's going to be the 4th team in instead of the 5th team, and they get throttled, and then we move on. This has a little different feel to me, and obviously I understand that, we'll see the Ohio States and Michigans and the Marylands and Michigans, and there will be losses that come out of that. It's hard for me to kind of predict what that'll look like, though, and I don't usually root for chaos, and I'm kind of a believer in 4 teams over 12, but this might be the year where we really have some nonsense going on and some bizarre ranking issues when we get to late November.
Brett, how good is this Iowa defense? I know they hang their hat on that. Are they a SEC caliber defense? Kind of what makes them tick?
I don't think they are, Matt, and this is probably the unique discussion because I know SEC people will kind of turn up their nose at some of the Big Ten. It is a bend but don't break defense. It is can we force you to make a mistake on your 9th play of the drive and turn the ball over? Can we play 2 deep safeties that will get a deflection and a pickoff? Can we score on defense? Can we get a pick 6? So it doesn't look like the SEC defenses that are loaded with 4 and 5 stars, the guys that we know we're going to see in the NFL. Having said that, Iowa cranks out 2 or 3 NFL players every year, and usually they're defensive players. But it is different, and it's very much a defense that's built for November when it's cold and rainy and you can't pass for 2 quarters. Can you get a lead? Can you manage the game defensively? Can you get a pick 6? So it has a much different feel, but it does almost admittedly kind of work in the Big Ten. It probably would not work, I don't think, at least week in and week out in the SEC.
They have to be the only team that's not a service academy to win a game without completing a pass to a wide receiver in like decades. I mean, they beat Purdue last week 20-14, 6 completed passes, 5 to a tight end, 1 to a running back. I mean, this is 2023, right, Brett?
Well, it is. Now, they had one pass that went through a receiver's hands and ended up being intercepted. They used their tight ends. They flex them out almost as wide receivers. Quite honestly, they probably should have won that game closer to 30-7. They got a 1st and goal at the 5, settled for a field goal, 1st and goal at the 3, settled for a field goal. They win in the margins, too. And by winning in the margins, I mean when you can't score 7, you score 3. Well, they had a field goal partially blocked. They had a field goal they missed that would have put the game away. And it's not sexy. It's not exciting, I don't think. But I'd rather win ugly and win 9 or 10 games than be entertained with a 6-6 team at the end of the year. And again, you got to kind of lean in on what you have. You don't have an overwhelming talent level. You've got players that you develop and try and get better. But if you win 9 or 10 games every year with that talent, it's a pretty amazing coaching job. But yeah, it does. It doesn't look right when you don't have wide receivers. You have a backup quarterback filling in for Cade McNamara, who was hurt, that completed 6 passes last week. So it's seemingly hard to win, but I know they find ways. And the crazy part is this Wisconsin game this weekend's probably for the Big Ten West. It's the last year of divisions in the Big Ten. So for whatever that's worth, sometimes I feel like when you win the Big Ten West, then you have to wish that you didn't have to play another game against Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State. But when you line up in that division, the best you can do is win your division. So if Wisconsin wins or Iowa wins this weekend, they'll have certainly a leg up. And it wouldn't shock me at all if it was another 13-10 type game.
And maybe the biggest one of the week, a former SEC guy in Bo Nix taking Oregon into Washington. And adversely, that's going to be a shootout. Both those teams can put up 40. How do you see that one going? You see the home team hold and serve?
I'd probably lean over to Nix over the Penix, but that's the game, Matt. You're right. That's the game that I'm interested in watching this weekend whenever I can get to a television. It's too bad that, again, we're talking about the demise of the Pac-12 because this is entertaining, and these are 2 really good teams. I don't know quite how they would stack up against maybe a Georgia or even Oklahoma. But they're deserving this year for a seat at the table, which has not always been the case. I would probably lean Oregon and Bo Nix, but my goodness, they have a lot of weapons for Washington. We don't get to see them every week. We don't get to camp in front of the TV like we would Alabama or Georgia. But there's a lot of players on those teams that'll play on Sundays, and they should make for a wildly entertaining game.
To end on a baseball thought, the talk has been about the sitting around that the Orioles had to do and that the Dodgers did, but they earned that ability to sit around by having great regular seasons. I don't know if that's the reason why they played so poorly or really pitched so poorly more than anything else in the series that they played. The more you expand the baseball playoffs, Brett, the farther it gets away from really what the regular season was supposed to be about, and the postseason feels much different than the regular season in terms of days off and structure of the series and all of that. Does the postseason need any more tweaking, or maybe the way that I look at it, please stop tweaking it, because then it's going to get a little bit weirder, and we don't need that.
Well, it's weird now. I was having some debates on social media with fans about Baltimore or L.A. or Atlanta being elite, and they keep saying, well, they're losing all of their postseason games. But you and I are traditionalists enough to know that if somebody wins 100 games over a 5 or 6 month season, they've earned that opportunity. But a bye doesn't seem to be beneficial anymore. Quite the contrary. Houston seems to be the only team that can emerge for whatever reason through this bye issue. And then if you survive, that all of your competition, Baltimore lost. They were supposed to have home field advantage. Now you get it. Atlanta's potentially losing. Dodgers have lost. And it just gets easier as it gets deeper. I don't have the answers, and I would love it if somebody did. But this current format in its form is not doing the best teams any help, and it's not providing any assistance. And then when we get a World Series where the TV rankings or ratings are a little bit low because we don't have a Dodger team or an Atlanta team, I'm waiting for the cries to come out from everybody. Do you have an answer, Phil? Because
Nope.
Whatever it is, this current setup is just taking the best teams and just throwing them into the trash can.
I kind of liked it when it was four teams that got in,
did
two
too.
series each side. Leave it at that.
It was easier, wasn't it? Simpler?
Yeah, it was, but life isn't simple. I'm sure Rob Manfred has a great solution to it, because he's got a great solution to everything. Brett, we'll leave it there.
More teams is not the answer, but
No.
it's a shame. These teams have had their season end in 2 or 3 days when they were the best over 6 months.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.